Okay, and we are live. Welcome to MBA Waves. We are on the air. MBA Waves is the live interactive vidcast talking all things MBA every week on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube Live. MBA Waves is founded by MBA and GMAT coaching professionals who coach and consult on people seeking entry into the powerful world of MBA holders. I am Eric Lucrezia, your moderator for today, joined by my fellow co-founder of MBA Waves, Bara Sapir. Bara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Bara Sapir with City Test Prep and Mindflow. And we're a test prep company that helps students not only in the test, but also on their mindset. So I'm super excited to see John again.
Yeah. And so then without further ado, let's introduce again, second time joining us, John Passaro.
Yeah, it's great to be back. So yeah, my name is John Passaro. I run my own coaching firm. I work with a wide range of professionals working in high pressure careers, a lot of lawyers. And I work with people on performance and managing teams and managing workload and things like that. So we're looking forward to this discussion today.
Thanks, John. So once again, my name is Eric Lucrezia. I am the former director of recruitment for the global MBA program at ESSEC Business School in Paris, where I normally am. Today, I'm joining you from Strasbourg, France. And I am the founder of Candidate Coach, where I work with MBA candidates from all over the world who are refining their applications and their personal brand and getting into their top MBA of their choice. And so today's topic, which you can see every week on MBAwaves.com, episode 46, You Are Not Your Achievements. So it's about balancing success and self-esteem. So kind of an interesting topic. I was actually inspired by a TED Talk that I saw. For those of you who know me, I love TED Talks. And this is with Elizabeth Gilbert, who is the author of Eat, Pray, Love, which subsequently became a movie starring Julia Roberts. And she did a TED Talk that I found super interesting called Your Elusive Creative Genius. And so she speaks about, and she's very funny, by the way, she speaks about this like freakishly huge success she had and how as an author or a creative in general, it can be really intimidating knowing that perhaps your greatest success is already behind you and how do you go on with that? And so she starts getting into some old philosophy, right? But the base of it is about creating a safe distance between her and her work, not necessarily being defined by her work. And she gets into how in ancient Greece, Socrates spoke about these daimons, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Same in ancient Rome, except they called it a genius, which was not actually a person, but sort of these magical divine entities that literally lived in the walls of an artist's studio that would come out and invisibly assist the artist with their work and would influence their outcome. And this was interesting because from one side, it helped, I guess, avoid sort of narcissism. Like if your work was amazing, you couldn't take all the credit for it. But if it bombed, it wasn't entirely your fault either. Like, probably you had some pretty lame geniuses living in your walls. So apparently after the Renaissance period, this all changed and the individual human became much more the center of the universe. This was the birth of rational humanism. And they thought that at that point, creativity came from the individual, from the self. And she makes the case that this was a huge error. And she makes the case that we should perhaps go back to some other ways of thinking, because the way we think about creativity and talent or work in general today, it perhaps places far too much pressure on the individual. So she talks about the need to separate ourselves as mere mortals from the work that we do. And sometimes our work will result in something genius and be a huge success, whether it be a work of art or like a business deal, maybe an 800 GMAT score or admission to Wharton. That's like the dream for a lot of people. And sometimes that won't happen, but we still need to live with ourselves and do our jobs anyway. And above all, find happiness and satisfaction in this life. So how to balance these two is kind of the subject of today's MBA Waves episode. And how this relates to the MBA or the GMAT or MBA admissions or your careers in general. I mean, think about it. Every year, thousands of people work really hard to have a very competitive application for admission to their dream school. And naturally, not everyone can be a winner or hit that 800 score or get into the top 10 schools. So what do you do when you have goals that you're working really, really hard for, and sometimes you don't reach them, at least on the first try? So I'm really happy to have Bara, who works in test prep, as you all know. But she has with City Test Prep, they have a very, I think, unique approach that is about managing test anxiety and incorporating a lot of like mindfulness into the strategy. And John also is an executive coach. I think he has clients that face these challenges as well. So, John, I wanted to kind of turn it over to you. You said a couple of things when we were exchanging prior to the episode. Did you want to like share some of your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think what I was really thinking about when you brought up this topic was uh, why people set goals, why people go after certain things, right? I mean, for me, I always start from the premise that what we're really all after is to lead a good life and be happy. And I think a lot of people are maybe tricked into thinking that, oh, if you do get into that top MBA program, or if you do get that perfect score on the GMAT or what have you, then that's going to be the key that will make you really happy. But at the end of the day, I think what people really need to do is dig a little bit deeper, right? And think about, okay, well, why do I want that? What is that going to get me? Because ultimately, you know, participating in a great MBA program can be wonderful in itself, but it's also ultimately means to an end, right? It's a pathway to get you somewhere else. It's a pathway to get you to a good job, a great career. And so there are many different ways to get there. And I think that one way of thinking about that is, again, investigating why you really want this thing. And, what are the different ways of getting there that might even be more interesting? Is there a program that's maybe not a top rank program, that maybe it's in a geographical area that's located close to a lot of businesses that you want to work for, or that's located in a region that you really want to work in. Really getting in touch with what your values are and figuring out what's really important to you instead of just what other people think is really important in some sort of general sense.
Absolutely. I think you're touching on a theme that we often discuss, which is about fit, right? Finding the right fit program for you. And it really, I think it's something that you owe to yourself to really properly do the research and go deep, way beyond the website and the brochures, but talking to people. Because, right, an MBA program is really very much about the people. The academic content is going to be more or less the same across MBA programs worldwide. So it's really about, what is the culture at that school? Is there a values match? You mentioned maybe like a niche program that could be very appropriate for your career path. So let me ask both of you, Bara and John, working with clients, what are you guys seeing out there? Are people coming to you under enormous stress or fear of failure? Like, what do you think are some of the underlying reasons that people come to see you, or maybe extra baggage they may be carrying that might be holding them back?
Can I tap back to something that you said earlier, which was my dog. Well, first of all, my dog is making a presence here. It's International Pet Week, I think, and I've got caterpillars growing in the back that showed up. I have an army of them. It's amazing, but it's good for our topic, right? To have these caterpillars in my backyard. It's like perfect timing.
Okay.
So one of the things, Bill Clinton used to actually, whenever something went wrong, he would always talk about it saying, well, Bill Clinton did this thing. But whenever something went right, he would say, well, this is what I did. So it's really interesting when you're talking about what Elizabeth Gilbert was talking about, and these they're not demons, they're these magical creatures that are they probably called it, like, what do they call it, like muses in a way, right? Some kind of muse,
inspiration.
And what you both probably don't know, and what most of the listeners don't know, is that I also have a background in fine arts, right? So I used to design museums in New York, and I used to be an artist, and so I draw on that with my clients, bringing us back to your question, which is that there's this place, and John, I bet you work with this too, about helping students getting into the zone, right? Helping students get to a place. I think Rumi talks about, there's a field where good and bad don't exist. I'll meet you there, right? So this idea of being in the moment, like knowing that you have the goal, and we can talk about goals and inspiration and incentives and all of that, but you have this goal, but you have all of these hoops that you have to jump through. And sometimes people get really freaked out about, exponents or verb choices, or what are they going to wear to the interview, or how are they going to get to that job? And how do you eat an elephant? I mean, I hate this comparison because I would never do that. How do you eat a really big pizza? One bite at a time. Right? Like you can't, you're not going to, so everything is step by step. And we've often talked on MBA Waves that the way that you do some things or the way that you do all things. And that means it's also an opportunity for change and growth and deepening. So if students come to us with fear, I do something similar that John's talking about. It's like, okay, well, what's the underlying fear? Like what's holding you back? What's the triggers? And I don't even need to get to source. I don't need to know necessarily that their third grade math teacher told them that they would never do anything in math, but I can help them with the symptom and also help them have a sense of, self-acceptance And like, okay, so you're not going to be Einstein. That's okay. You just need to do like a few questions on a test to get you to the next place. That's going to get you to the next place. That's going to get you to the next place. Right. And these are all just pathways, right? John was talking about that. Like they're all different pathways, and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's anyway, I've spoken enough, but I wanted to throw those different pieces in. But I do really understand. I love that you brought up Elizabeth Gilbert. I really enjoy her writing quite a bit too. So
Well, I
Apparently,
think
there's her next book soon, so you can read that next. Sorry, John, what were you going to say?
no, I'm just going to bounce a little bit off of what Bara was saying and say that I think probably also, I mean, I'm guessing that that's something that you help your students do as well, is to have fun with the test, right? Because, again, if you just have in mind, okay, I want to do this test so that I can get X score, then that sets yourself up for a really challenging task, right? But if you really learn to actually have fun with it and enjoy it for what it is, then that's when you can really succeed.
Yeah, letting go of the hold that it has, right? Letting go of the need for it to be really a reflection of you. It's basically just a snapshot, and you're just getting ready the whole time. It's like you're going to have this snapshot, and whatever it is, we know that we prepare our students so that there's no surprise, right? We don't want there to be any surprises. We want them to know what it is that they're going in for, and that they're doing the best that they can do. They don't need to do better than the best that they can do, and we don't want them to do worse. But they've already demonstrated time and time again that this is where they are. This is the range that they're in. And so, yeah, and making it fun too, like being light about it, making fun of the fact that, yeah, like you're taking an 11th grade test, to get into business school, or even creating some mind games, like, well, who's someone that you want to emulate? Who's someone who you really respect? How would they do it? Right. So we draw from NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and hypnosis, and a bit of EMDR and reframing, and growth mindset is really big. Growth mindset is huge, of seeing that, mistakes are not things that you want to drag you down, but they're actually things that you want to learn from, and that could spark ingenuity and can spark opportunity. So
yeah, that's really huge. And embracing growth mindset is really key as well for me, helping a lot of my clients to get where they want to be. Because yeah, it's accepting that you're not always going to be perfect, but that's just part of the process for everybody, and that's what really helps you learn.
And not bringing yourself down about it, because it's just that moment in time. That moment has passed, right? But allowing yourself to learn from the experience. I mean, it's a great life skill. This whole application process is a great life skill. It's not just getting into the school. Like everything that you learn always can be an opportunity for you to bring to the next thing that you do.
You often mention that, Bara, that preparing for the GMAT, for example, or going through the whole MBA admissions process is very much great for training for life. And the MBA itself, the program itself, it absolutely is something that gives you so many more skills that are applicable in your personal life, just as a human, than just working in a job. So I guess this kind of brings me to my next question for, again, both of you. What might be your philosophy, like, in having a more balanced approach to goal setting? Whoever wants to go first.
You can go.
Okay, I would say, yeah. I mean, the philosophy is to always start with yourself and figure out what your values are. What's really important to you? What gives you meaning, and why? And that helps you, because a lot of the clients that I work with as well, it's the kind of people that have come out of top MBA programs, things like that. And so it's the kind of people who have always managed to jump through these hoops. But at some stage, you get to a point where you need to create some sort of identity for yourself and be comfortable with the fact that you're not going to be all things to all people. You have to figure out where you fit into the puzzle, what your value added really is. And so being comfortable with the strengths you have, but also the weaknesses you have, and understanding that you are complementary to other people that you're working with. And so once you get really comfortable with, okay, this is really what I want, it helps you forget a little bit about all these often unreasonable standards that you think other people have set up for you. And you get more comfortable with where you are, and it allows you to be just a much happier person, and ultimately less stressed out and more successful.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like that, the idea that it takes a village, right? So, and business school is leadership school. And so if you've got a weakness, being comfortable with it and then delegating it and then learning from the person you delegate it to is pretty amazing, right? Because then you get the thing done, plus you get some at least front row seats to how someone else deals and moves through something. So even though you might not want to take on that task the next time it comes around, you'll still know better how to do it better, right? I learn all the time from other people. I've got lots of weaknesses, but that's, I mean, Leonard Cohen said, there's a broken part of the Liberty Bell, and that's how the light gets in, right? So the broken parts of ourselves are the things that will help us to see things in a clearer way and also appreciate the things that are really done well. So I with goals, also the why is super important. And you see the why everywhere. You see it in pop magazines and you see I think it's super important. It's not just why do you want to, it's not just you want to go business school. Well, why? Why are you paying me money? Why am I accepting your money? Why should I take you as a client to help you get into these schools? What is it that you're going to do with this degree to make the world a better place? I mean, we're seeing now, here's my political plug. We're seeing now the world is in such disarray because of someone's why, right? Someone's why is not healthy and people are suffering immensely and will continue to suffer. And no one is putting a stop to it, right? No one is, because of the system that's set up. So it's really understanding what your goal is and even having a friend to bounce off, to say, go deeper, because it is exactly what you said in the beginning, John. We just want to be happy. Most of us just really want a happy life. So, what is that going to look like? Is it going to be a lifestyle happiness, or is it going to be intellectually stimulated? What are the different pieces that are going to give you that enriched life experience?
Yeah, and knowing that can change constantly as well, and so staying in touch with that.
Yeah.
And I just want to pick up as well on something you were talking about, knowing what your weaknesses are and when to delegate, and also I would say when to ask for help. And I think that that's a huge sign of strength, is when you're confident enough to say, look, this is a weak area of mine. I have other strengths. That's fine. I'm totally comfortable reaching out to someone else and asking for help. It's a big sign of wisdom, saying that you can recognize what the limits of your abilities are. It builds up your network, so it strengthens your social skills, and also it gives you a learning opportunity, because if you ask someone else for help, then chances are they're going to show you how to do it, and then it'll add that tool to your toolkit.
Absolutely.
And you guys are saying a lot of good stuff. Thank you. You can't be all things to all people. You can't be great at everything. And yes, MBA programs or business school in general is teaching leadership. And one would hope, I'm sure it's most of the time the case, that they teach people who are going to be future top leaders, right? That you surround yourself with people who are better than you at various different tasks. Maybe you're just not great at finance, but you're the visionary one. You're the one that's driving the ideas. Maybe you're good at public relations or whatever it may be. But you assemble a team around you, whether you're a CEO or a president putting his cabinet together or her cabinet together, that you consider what your weaknesses are and who can fill those gaps, and not being afraid to have people who are better than you at certain things. That's what's going to make the whole team shine. And
which is that brings us exactly to where we are, which is exactly the work that we all do, right? There's areas that we shine, and that's to help other people find their best selves, right? And whether that's through their applications or picking out the schools that are going to be the best choice, or figuring out how to get a great score on the test, and even getting into the weeds there. It's like figuring out which tutor is going to work best with the student, because some students really want a lot of structure. Some want to just work on their own and have, light touch. It just depends. But really figuring out what's not working for you, asking for help, but also being able to distinguish and discern what the best help for you is going to look like.
And John, you brought up something like, knowing the limits of your skill or your talent or whatever. I think the balance for me, what I often think about, without getting too deep into philosophy and stuff, but I always think about is kind of stepping out of myself. Here I am running my own coaching company, and I'm the one doing all the little tasks. Besides the coaching, I'm doing the marketing, I'm doing the accounting, I'm doing the IT department, all of those things. But then there's kind of in this context of my company, like I like to think of it as my higher self, where I step out and look above from the balcony and try to have this kind of overview. And it's something like that, sort of being able to step out of yourself and seeing what the various pieces are doing and try to make that operate more smoothly. But this also makes me think of like entrepreneurship, right? And the catch line I often hear is learning how to fail efficiently or how to fail fast. And that's something, in the among the many arguments of why it's useful to do an MBA when you want to be an entrepreneur, or you want to continue as an entrepreneur, is that you learn, how to write a business plan. There's the whole network piece, but this whole thing about failing efficiently, I think, is so relevant, right? Because inevitably, Zuckerberg didn't come out with his first Facebook and it worked perfectly. Or if it did, that's like 1 in a billion, right? Most people, they have their idea, they put their heart and soul into it, and they think this is the best version of what I can do, right? And most likely it's going to fail. And the idea of failing efficiently is to be able to like look at what didn't work, make the necessary adjustments, pick yourself up back again. It's a very human thing to feel weighed down by failure, but to be able to pick yourself back up and launch again and again and again and again until it sticks, until you have something that works. And that's sort of in line with what I'm talking about today about, you are not your achievements, right? Like you are still a human that needs love and wants to be happy in this life, yet pushing yourself to improve. So going back to what John was saying about the limits, I think it's a sort of double stream thing of like, okay, putting my energy, attention, maybe taking classes or whatever to improve a certain skill where I'm weak, but also not letting that define you if you do hit that limit. So it's like you're at the same time pushing yourself to be better, but not allowing the limit to hold you back or from being happy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the irony is that humans believe the negative more than they believe the positive, right? Just that's what happens. And so we have to also train ourselves to actually be, have a positive sandwich where the negative can be, inside, but have it surrounded by things that are good. Gratitude journals, I think, are really good for that. I have students who will write before they go to bed or when they wake up what they're grateful for, to remind, because I think we need to remind ourselves things that are working, because man, we are our own worst enemy all the time, right? And so having a coach, having a friend, an accountability partner, someone, or really getting into the practice where you're good to yourself and finding the help that you need, because there's someone out there or someone's out there that can help you with all these different pieces.
You talked about that like positivity sandwich. Is that what you called it?
I don't know what I called it, but yeah, we can call it a positivity sandwich.
Sandwiching the negative with positive. Think about like whenever you've gotten feedback from a boss, a good boss at least, a manager who had to give you some negative feedback with the goal of improvement, right? But usually it's sandwiched between like, okay, this is really good, this is what you need to work on, and I really have confidence in you. You've got these talents and so forth, and it's delivering it with, like you said, a positivity sandwich. I like that idea.
What's also interesting, when I was in art school, and actually I was a professor for a little while, when we would do critiques, we would never talk about the artwork as being the person's. We talked about the artwork on its own. Mm-hmm. So we wanted, which is bringing back to what you were saying before with Elizabeth Gilbert, like this artwork is successful in these ways. This is what it's conveying. This is what I see it saying. It's not succeeding in doing X, Y, or Z. And so we're moving it from the person, so the person doesn't have to take it personally. Like a lot of these things, you don't have to take personally, because Eric, it's exactly what you said. We just can't be everything to everyone or perfect at everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's also important to think about why we actually go to grad school to begin with, right? It is this learning environment, and this goes back to both fit and growth mindset, right? Because you want to pick a school where you're going to feel comfortable pushing yourself to your limits and testing yourself and failing occasionally or often, maybe saying something stupid in class or something that doesn't land, or admitting that you don't understand something, instead of just feeling like you have to prove yourself all the time, because that's how you're really going to learn. So just understanding that this is all about sort of a learning environment and not a place where you're trying to just prove yourself.
Incubator.
So, sort of getting into like strategies, which is the next question. So I'll just rephrase it, and you guys can continue on. What are some specific strategies you guys might suggest in your respective fields of work that would help keep a healthy balance while aiming to, hit some lofty goals?
So I think I'd like to pick up on what Bara was saying before about having, a thinking partner, an accountability partner to help you keep a check on reality, especially, when we live in this world of social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, everything. Everybody seems to be kicking goals all the time. And so it's important to have someone who can remind you that, give you a reality check and say, look, I stumble all the time as well. Things aren't super easy for me. And so that can help you keep track of the fact that, okay, look, just because I don't feel like I'm doing the best job ever all the time doesn't mean that I'm a failure. I think that can help you keep yourself on track.
Accountability partners. I mean, it makes you think of like co-working spaces. A lot of times have these opportunities for you to buddy up with people and to share those successes and failures and have that motivation and accountability. Like, okay, we're here. There's a synergy that we have together, especially if you're, you run your own company, or maybe if we're talking about like a study buddy for the GMAT, right? Somebody or a group of people is kind of like a support group. Like we have to face this monster together. So yeah, that synergy of humans working on the same thing, or at least parallel things that can help each other.
I have to tell you, no joke, I visit these new caterpillars that are hanging out in my backyard. There's like 20 of them. And I just took pictures before the episode because I'm like talking to them. They're amazing. They're buddying up. They're like buddying up. I'm like, you guys are buddying up. That's awesome. Like you guys have figured out, because they're like eating, and they're just so magical. They're really amazing. But I do think that having the world not exist just in your own head and having it outside of you, that's why journaling is so great. But when you have a witness who can say, great, you'll do better next time, and you're doing great, and you're showing up, right? It's like, caterpillar, you're eating the milkweed, you're doing awesome. and it'll be on my Facebook, the picture soon.
Oh, I can't wait.
And they're amazing. They're monarchs. They're monarchs. Yeah, they're going to be monarchs. So,
now we're talking.
Now we're serious, right? So yeah, I think that some strategies are to figure out a reasonable way to meet your goals, and having that structure in place, having an accountability partner, a coach, a friend, or just really like there's not much that feels better than checking off your to-do list when you finish things, and also rewarding yourself when you accomplish things. Even if you didn't do amazing on the diagnostic test, you did it, and that you're going to learn from what it is that you've not done well on. It's always like doing, refining, redoing, refining, right? So it's a process. Is Eric? I think Eric is frozen.
Yeah, I think Eric is frozen as well. I think also too, what's really important is setting goals so that you know when enough is enough, right? Because you can't just, I have a lot of clients who just want to keep working. I could just do more. But at some point that's not sustainable. And so you have to say, okay, look, when I've put in X amount of time, or when I've accomplished X amount, that's enough. Then I can give myself a break and I can feel okay about it.
And sometimes when you have that break and you have that openness and that spaciousness, whatever you were looking for that you couldn't find will appear, right? Yeah. Just because it's given a little bit of space to happen. I mean, that happens in conversations with friends, right? Yeah. Where you just need to have that space. And then all of a sudden it's like you can actually come back to it with fresh eyes, an open heart. It's just a better way to work. And rewards, like I said, rewarding yourself when you do finish whatever it is. That's reward often and money.
So I think it's a good place to finish off. We're rounding off the half hour now. But last question: what are some signs you guys think that appear that would indicate that you might want to get help or support of a coach as you're going for your goals?
I think frustration. I think that if someone's feeling frustration, I mean, what I tell clients is that, time, like the most valuable asset is time, right? The most valuable asset we have in the world is time. And so when you hire someone to help you, you're basically paying yourself, right? You're paying yourself with time. And so if you're feeling frustrated or pushed back or just like it's just not falling into place the way you want it to, taking the advice and support of someone who's done this, who knows what you need to do in order to succeed, and who's going to bring you on that path is going to be basically the most valuable gift you could give yourself, because it's just time.
Totally agree. I cannot stand accounting, and I definitely hire an accountant to take care of that for me.
Absolutely.
French American taxes is too sloppy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say my big one is if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling stagnant, if you different strategies that you're trying can't seem to help you move forward, then it's time to reach out to someone and figure out, okay, how can I get a fresh perspective? What can I do differently to try to make things work?
And for me, what I often see are people who may have not gotten admitted to the business schools of their choice the first time around, and they say, I'm not doing something right. I thought I've done my best. I did do my best, but there's something more to be done. I want to try. And that's usually when they'll come to me or another coach to help them just make a little bit of tweaks. It's usually all there is. But, when you're in it, it's very hard to see yourself like, having someone who's external, to have those fresh set of eyes and ears that knows the industry, that knows the process. That's usually when I see people coming for help for coaching. Yeah. All right. Well, this was super interesting, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us, John.
Thanks so much for having me.
Always.
Great to see you again, John.
I think Eric's frozen again.
Oh, it got a little bit cut.
There he is. There he is.
Yeah, I think my Wi-Fi is not great over here. So sorry about that. But I was just wrapping it up. So thank you everyone who joined us today. I hope it was insightful and interesting for you. I know it was for me. Like every episode, I always learn something new, especially when you have great guests like John. Next week on MBA Waves, we're going to talk about the GMAT. So it's all about top tips from professional GMAT coaches. So don't miss out. Get lots of insight. And for the full programming schedule, you can go to mbawaves.com. And to watch any past episodes, we post all of those there on the past episodes tab. So thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, John. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.
Bye.